Welcome back to another episode of Spawnography. I'm one of your hosts, Pierce Leiden, here with pronouns they, them, here with as always.
George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her. How the living heck are you, Pierce?
Pretty good. We're recording on a Tuesday night. We were going to record on Sunday, but I had a race on Sunday in Philly, the Philly Broad Street run, and then I was too tired when I got home.
Because you came in first.
I came in 936.
Practically first.
Out of 40,000.
Like I said.
So
that's a pretty high percentage.
But had a great time in Philly. Met up with friend of the pod, Zach Rosenberg.
Oh wow!
Writer of Kaito 84. He happened to just be in town at the same time, so we grabbed a great breakfast.
That's nice.
And we went to some shops for Free Comic Book Day.
Oh,
went to Atomic City Comics.
I forgot even all about that. I didn't do anything because my town. I live in a college town, and stuff gets bonkers. You know what I did do Saturday is I went to a craft festival, so that's fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I picked up a bunch of stuff. The coolest thing I picked up, I think, is this Magic Mayhem Metal book by Tom Hunter.
Okay, that looks awesome.
It's so fucking rad. It's all these like really sick illustrations and stuff.
Hell yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, so if you hang out with Zach, you're always going to spend some money. I mean that in a positive way, because he pulled out some stuff and I was like, that's just cool. I have to have that. And so I don't know. I had a good weekend, and now it's the week of as you've been on my work get-togethers before.
Yeah, that's true. I did
a few years back,
a couple years ago.
So that's this weekend, or this week rather.
Oh boy, so you're going to be having a great time. Enjoy karaoke.
Yeah, every year. It's always karaoke. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, how's your week going so far?
Pretty good. Before I talk about it, I will just give you one suggestion, which is definitely do Too Drunk to Fuck by the Dead Kennedys.
Okay. We don't have I'm de facto HR at my company now, so I think that'll
set a really interesting precedent.
Yeah.
Have someone record it so you can use it as a training video. Now, what did Pierce do wrong?
We're doing all those trainings
Pierce
right now.
Sing well enough. B, Pierce sang the wrong song. C, Pierce looked directly in their coworker's eyes while singing it. C, D, their coworker was their boss. No, these opinions are not reflected by Pierce's work.
That's true. Yeah, my work. I mean, I don't think anybody at my job has very strong Spawn opinions in the first place, because none of them listen to this show. But
there you go. Well, they're not part of the Spawnmunity yet.
They're not. And and our episode with TinySpawny just went live this week. So
nice.
If you haven't checked that out yet, folks. Mm-hmm.
Definitely check it out. It's a great episode. Mark's a great guy. We had a wonderful conversation. His collection is so fun. That episode that you just heard, I think my recommendation at the end was Belushi Speedball, which I still recommend. If you heard that a couple weeks ago when that episode released, and now the future time of that when we record, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yesterday I was listening to Belushi Speedball in my living room while I was drawing, and my girlfriend, so I'll say this. I did not really grow up with SpongeBob, didn't really watch SpongeBob. I was just a little too old when it came out to like feel cool watching a Nickelodeon cartoon at the height of its popularity or whatever. And so I never really watched
SpongeBob. Got it.
What's that?
Too cool for SpongeBob.
Yes, that's what I was. That would be the name of a Belushi Speedball song, I'm sure, because apparently about like 70% of their songs are SpongeBob SquarePants references and have SpongeBob SquarePants references in the lyrics. And I found this out because my partner, who I live with, absolutely did watch SpongeBob, and she was just like, oh my god, that's this episode. Oh boy, that's this episode. And she can talk about that like I can talk about The Simpsons. And so we did watch some SpongeBob, which was fun, and it made me realize that SpongeBob is basically The Simpsons meets Looney Tunes. Like, it's about a little town with like a little guy who's kind of the core of everything, and he goes around and has little adventures, and there's like a little society that exists around this one idea, and then also they're just insane chaos monsters from another dimension.
Yep.
Like Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I like whenever they do the sort of Aquaman riff. They have
Oh
some
yeah, we
characters
watched
that are-
that one, Mermaid Man,
yeah.
voiced by
And Barnacle Boy.
and Barnacle Boy voiced by Tim Conway, and also sometimes Burt Ward apparently, and Mermaid Man voiced by I think Ernest Borgnine.
Wow.
The main one of the big episodes with them is referenced in a Belushi Speedball song called Wombology.
Incredible.
It is incredible. Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what else you find out about Belushi Speedball.
Oh, I'm sure it's all good. Their lead guitarist was the bassist in Guar for a while. He's like 43 years old, so
amazing. This is just another thing for our listeners to track, is like the rise and fall of Belushi Speedball.
Oh God, please no.
Spawnography.
They've been around for quite some time.
Yeah,
nothing I have
their
heard
Bandcamp
is...
has like 30 records. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're like Horse the Band in a lot of ways. Horse the Band, kind of problematic in retrospect, but they had some great songs.
They?
Well, some of their lyrics don't quite hold up. Especially in like what is it, Cutman? One of their best songs. They use the R slur a couple times. Just that kind, just very dated. Just in the way that like
dated edgelord shit.
More people thought that was okay to say, and they were also wrong.
Yeah.
You know, as a culture, we were kind of wrong about it.
Hopefully they learned and they're better now.
Well, you know, the kids are trying to bring it back. They want to say the podcaster words that their parents got to say. Like straight up, it's true. That's what a lot of it is they're being sold this idea of like, we have to return. And then what they're being told to return to is being able to call people the fucking N-word on Xbox Live. And it's like, that's what we're prioritizing. My shirt is blending in with my chair really well. Pierce, I'm going to show you my shirt.
You do look a little bit like a floating head. I can see it's an Aliens shirt, but I bet that there's a little bit more.
If you describe it, we'll get like rated M or whatever again.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's definitely a film by James Cameron.
It's a Meth Syndicate shirt. I'll recommend them again. I'm sure I have before.
That's exactly what happens to Pyacon. Actually, in Avatar 2. So that's just
not
a
real.
Grab.
You made up that movie.
I don't know that you knew that you were wearing an Avatar.
James
shirt.
Cameron has only made 2 sequels.
Terminator 2
and Aliens. Yeah. Did he make any movies after Terminator 2? Is that real?
Listen, I won't stand for... Listen, Avatar is a good time. You could have a worse time at the movies. I've said this before. I'll say it again.
I don't know if I could. I feel like sitting through Avatar, I would probably feel like my girlfriend feels when I'm like, we're seeing Ant-Man and the Wasp, dude. That's what I told her when we were watching, when she was talking about SpongeBob and going through like, she was like, oh, ravioli, give me the formula. That is from this episode where they talk about this and this. And I was like, this must be exactly how you feel when we're watching a fucking Marvel movie and I'm just like, oh, that's Schmorpus in the comics this is based on. He fucking went to Planet Goofball. And like, I get excited because it's like, oh, I saw the thing I know.
Yeah. So SpongeBob is her Fantastic Four is basically what you're saying?
It's definitely her MCU, I guess. I don't know. I don't give a shit.
Sure.
No.
The SBU.
The SBCU.
Law and Order
the SBCU.
Well, we got two issues of Spawn to cover today.
We do.
We're up to 180 and 181. We're winding down.
We've read a Wolverine's worth of issues.
Yeah. And Ooh, we're finally getting to some stuff that we've been talking about for a while because we've known about it.
Interesting and weird. Well, there's some stuff here that I'm still not sure about that I don't know will get resolved at least until the next issue. There's just
That's kind of why when we talked off mic about potentially covering a little bit more in this episode, but
I think our listeners will enjoy the cliffhanger.
Well, I think like you pointed out that there is a lot to dig into here, so we're kind of going to get a lot of analysis here that will not get paid off until next episode, but
that will make next episode a reasonable length.
Theoretically,
we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
We could always top ourselves.
It's true.
Why isn't there a Dom way?
What?
I have a Subway. Why isn't there a Dom Mariner?
There is.
Namor is kind of the Dom Mariner.
No, the Dom Mariner is Emma Frost.
You know what I was about to say is unless Emma Frost is there.
Spawn needs a Namor-esque presence.
Honestly, that was kind of Angela.
It was, actually. You're right.
Like the devil may care kind of badass who's convinced of her own like supremacy.
Angela also a fucker.
Angela definitely she is a plasm exchanger. We've talked before about the plasms. Plasms will be relatively important to these discussions of these issues of Spawn today. Pierce, on that note, hit me with the credits for Spawn number 180.
All right. This will be Spawn number 180. Todd McFarlane Image Comics present. It technically doesn't have a title, but we're calling it Dear Diary. This is story by David Hine and Todd McFarlane. Pencils by Brian Haberlin and Bing Cancino. Inks by Brian Haberlin and Jin Han. Colors by Andy Troy and Jin Han. Lettering by Tom Orzechowski. Production by Francis Takanaga. See, now here it's Takanaga, and before it was Takanaga, so I'm not crazy that it keeps switching.
Okay.
Somebody's
there's
fucking up.
Been a typo somewhere. Write in and
I
let
want
us
answers.
know who got it wrong.
Covered by Greg Capullo, dedicated to Raymond Briggs. Are you aware of Raymond Briggs? Actually, only passed away recently.
The name is familiar, but I can't call it to mind right now.
Have you, when you were a kid, did you ever read The Snowman?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, like the picture book that they made into an animated film.
Yep.
100%. Absolutely read that as a kid.
He did that. He did a bunch of children's illustration. At the time that this came out, I don't know that he was really putting anything out. I guess he kind of still was. He got 2012, he gets put into the British Comic Awards Hall of Fame. 2014, he gets an award for a book that he wrote called The Bear. They made a TV show about it recently.
Yeah, I think I remember.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, no, I remember the book, I think. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
What a great show. Isn't it fun to watch?
I don't watch it because I don't like TV.
It's very stressful.
Yeah. Anyway, cool. I guess this makes a little bit of sense in that I guess Todd has kids, and I imagine others on the team have kids, so they're probably enjoying some of Raymond Briggs's work.
Could also be an influence even on some of them from their younger days.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, we're going to open this. As I said, it's called Dear Diary, and it's with Cyan writing, Dear Diary, my teen angst has a body count.
That's right.
Dear Diary, I hate this. And she's talking about her premonitions. We thought about quoting this. Yeah. We thought about quoting this in the beginning, but she keeps seeing things. Now, we know that she's had these sort of since her connection to Spawn through the shoelace and the pacifier that she would carry around when she was,
as she calls him.
Yeah. And that she has this kind of intrinsic connection to him. She doesn't fully understand it. Her parents won't really give her any answers because they don't really want to get into Al Simmons, as he's Wanda's ex-husband. And
as we've learned and we'll address in these issues, we'll get into it right now. There's going to be some discussion of the marital violence between Al and Wanda. Not super explicit, but it's going to come up.
We're going to be starting to square that circle as it were.
Yeah, there's some developments here that we've kind of sort of alluded to and like looked for clues about, and it only gets more complicated in these two issues.
Yeah. And so she'd been having these like dreams, but now she's feeling like she's seeing things when she's awake, and she keeps seeing blood.
She
And
had
specifically,
premonitions all through like her adolescence or her childhood, and now she's in her adolescence.
right. And she's seeing blood like on her mother specifically, dripping down her legs, pooling at her feet, dripping down her face.
She's
And
really
she
just listening to a lot of MCR right now. That's all it is. We're right around the
I'm,
time of Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge. We're several
we
years
are
post the
far past it.
formation. Yeah, that's
We
true.
are we're post Black Parade at
Post
this
Black
point.
Parade. Wow.
Yeah.
That many years since they formed on that fateful day in American history. Then the only notable thing that happened.
Kind of fucked up that they put out like 3 absolute banger records in like 6 years.
I know. I know.
Like, geez, I've been in a lot of bands for 6 years at a time,
And
and
put out 3 songs.
3 songs maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, she keeps carrying on conversations though, but she's like really weirded out, and her and Terry kind of chides her for not going to bed on time, and they keep seeing the light underneath her door.
As they're
And
having this conversation, there's blood just dripping down Wanda and Terry's faces, and like, or especially Wanda's face, just all over her. And it's a very creepy kind of like sort of dreamlike image that shows you. I mean, she's having these hallucinations, which sadly, if you have read anything about certain types of schizoaffective disorders that cause visual hallucinations, this is not that uncommon to have stuff like this. So, anyway,
notable to the dedication also, Raymond Briggs's wife was schizophrenic. So I don't know if that
interesting.
might have
Well,
a
there you
little
go.
bit to do.
Maybe so, because, excuse me, this is a fairly, now I do not have a schizoaffective disorder. I've never been diagnosed with something like that. I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know all the best, most updated terms about it. I have read and heard about a lot of firsthand experiences of it. And this seems pretty in line. Now, obviously, they're mystifying it here and sort of like
Yeah.
exoticizing it with a magical connection, which I think some people with those kind of disorders often resent. Maybe we wouldn't necessarily do that now, but perhaps they are trying to, at least David Hine, at least trying to take some care in prioritize and portraying at least symptoms that could be perceived that way. I don't know. There's a long history of equating mental illness with mysticism, and it's problematic, and we don't have to get into all of it.
I
But
think I think one thing that we kind of keep seeing from David Hine in his quest, it seems, to make sense of everything, that he understands that Spawn works fairly well when there is a little bit of real world grounding, and then there's that kind of little bit extra. What
yeah,
I like that he's doing here is Cyan's never been like the most reliable narrator, mostly
but
because
she's been
she's
a
a child and
child.
she
Yeah,
right, and she doesn't technically really understand the full extent of some of the things going on around her. And so I really like this framing as like you said, it may to 2026 eyes be a little be insensitive to the folks who maybe relate to this on a more personal level, but I do think that he's trying to pull the wool over our eyes a little bit. He's trying to make blur the lines between like reality and the sort of magical
I
elements.
agree, and I think that that's why he's trying to be maybe true to some of those sort
Hmm.
of symptoms, because he's trying to show a more realistic blurring of those lines. I will also say there have been times when we've been critical of David Hine for certain storytelling decisions and plot points and stuff. I think that generally, and I can only speak for having just every other fucking type of mental illness. uh I think he's generally, when he's fucking up in some way, he's fucking up in the right direction. Does that make sense? I think we've said that before.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that in most cases he's not trying to be malicious. The intent is always to try and find an explanation. We saw this a little bit with Holguin as well, where they kind of will work in this mode of like, we have all these pieces out here, but they're kind of disparate and they're not really connected. So how can I make them connected? I think it's notable here also that Todd has a writing credit or a story credit on this issue. And we do get back to a few more core Spawn things here that Hein maybe seemed a little less, and even Holguin seemed a little, less interested in exploring as much.
Right.
Even though, as I keep saying, Hein does feel like he was hired a little bit to like make sense of things. I think that Holguin did a good job of like expanding the mythology. Hein was kind of tasked with like, all right, well, how do you get us to an ending? And now that we're starting to take the exit towards an ending, right? Like we're on the path towards something that seems like it'll be an ending. Issue 184 is called The End. Where there's going to be a sea change, and we had Armageddon. We've seen the fallout from this. But I will say the book does seem to have lost its steam a little bit since Armageddon. Armageddon being this really, really big thing. Not that there haven't been.
Well, I think we've waffled
issues
on that a little bit. You know what I mean?
Well,
there are times when it feels like it's really pushing forward, and times when it feels less so.
Well, I think what I mean, when I say that is like, because I think we've been pretty effusive in our praise over the last couple episodes, in terms of, wow, this is some interesting these are some interesting ideas. And as we dive back into Spawn's history, that he's like his secret history sort of, and his the Virkolas, right, and like that kind of stuff, and Gunslinger and Mammon kind of pulling the strings for years and years and years and years and years. It's interesting, but I think in terms of like pushing the story of Al Simmons forward, it doesn't do as much as we might want.
Well, it's going to do a lot in these two issues. That's for sure.
That's true.
Well, also maybe it's recency bias for me, but I think Hein has gotten better as he's gone on, and also there's been a lot of delight in Brian Haberlin's artwork and the artwork of some of the other creators who have been working alongside him, and that raises things, that elevates things in my mind. But we've often been on slightly opposite sides of the coin, where I've been a little more up on it, you've been a little more down at times, and I think that's kind of,
we tend to meet in the middle, though.
That's why I said just slightly different sides of the coin, where maybe we're meeting in the middle because we're having a good discussion and finding analysis in each other's viewpoints. But yeah, so speaking of Spawn, and you mentioned Armageddon and everything, we learn that Cyan remembers it. She remembers Spawn as an angel thanks to hearing about it from Granny. She's having visions from Granny, we'll find out. She also, she says her parents hate talking about Al Simmons, especially her mom. Granny seems to think Simmons is some kind of angel, and nobody cares about that because they don't know he saved the earth. And she's just she says, I care because I feel that something bad is happening to him, something really bad. And she holds the pacifier around the shoelace that has been her companion for years and years now.
Yeah, over a decade at this point.
Yeah.
And something bad is happening to Al. He recently got bit by that vampire.
He did. And we cut to a great splash page of him laying on the ground in agony, tearing at his like symbiote, which is kind of moving away from the like growing wound in his side.
It's like necrotic flesh. It's pretty cool. It's a great splash page. And at this point, we're getting his brother really continuing to come to terms with what has gone on. Mark, who is the FBI forensic investigator, or sorry, forensic psychologist, whatever he is.
He's a forensic. Yeah, he's like a profiler. Which
that's what I couldn't find the word. So so he's kind of we're kind of getting the recap of like he for 15 years Al was dead, and at least that's what he thought. He tried mourning, but he couldn't.
Because Al was a bad person and he always knew it. And now, Nyx is trying to heal Al and it's not working. We see the cockroaches kind of crawling out of his body away from her her light, or they're kind of crawling in and out, crawling all around him. Because we know he's powered by the bugs and insects and the darker creatures of night's earth away from the light into the shadow, etc. Blah blah blah. We learn that Mark kind of wishes Al had stayed dead, and I can't blame him. When your brother comes back as like a horrible haunted corpse monster.
Yeah. Well, and that like Al himself is racked with such guilt. It's not, we don't know that he's shared fully the extent of why he feels this guilt. We'll get into it in these issues, but and Nyx is able to kind of diagnose what's going on. When the vampire bit him and infected him with some kind of virus, mentally it's like his brain is, I think it's bleeding internally, she says. And she tries to go in to his body somehow. She's displaying powers we've just kind of never
well, she's got new powers before, now because of Mammon.
It's fine.
We've seen that a lot over the last few issues, is that she has as much power as Mammon allows her to have.
Right.
Which stops apparently at saving Al right now, because she says she's blocked from helping him psychically, and so is everyone else. As for what's happening to Spawn, well, it's really what's happening to Al Simmons. We see him in a barren landscape. There's like this sort of mountain or volcano erupting bats in the foreground, in the background. This is great art. The tone is very much like Purgatory. It's Al Simmons as a soldier marching through this environment. And he says, I'm tired of running from this madness. No more. I'm here. Come at me. And that's when the bats all show up. And who should really be there coalescing out of the bats but the K7 Letha, Al's symbiotic suit. And he says, you're going to try and scare me with my costume. And that's when it says, I am not your costume. You're my body. And we get this very cool, almost Jack Kirby-esque splash page of Spawn being like blasted by the bats, which are like causing energy to like pour out of him. That pose is just with the like legs like that and everything. That's just such a Jack Kirby, like New Gods type of pose. And we get the bats almost look like Kirby Crackle. There is Kirby Crackle around the symbiotes word balloons. It's a very cool theme.
The thing that I like that Spawn repeatedly comes back to as like a motif is these like barren wasteland type situations. The book's done it a few times when Al goes to hell and he's got to fight through that layer of hell where
it's like his astral plane.
Right. But he also, remember, fights the maker of the K7 Lethas.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like we've got precedent for this. What I love about this double page splash is that you can see Al.
Yeah.
On the body. It's really cool. It changes the whole perspective of, like, it gets like really trippy and like it changes the whole perspective of the 2 pages. This is not this giant K7 Letha bat monster thing looming over Al. It is so large that it encompasses the space that he's standing on.
In almost a conceptual way.
Yeah.
Remember when he fought Malbolgia one of the first times, faced off with him, and he was standing on Malbolgia's nipple.
Right.
And Malbolgia just warped the perspective off like in different ways. It is definitely the same kind of thing. And again, it reads as very conceptual because you see the symbiote looming over him. It's like set in the shadow on the abdomen of the thing. And it is thankfully off center of the double page spread. And also it's hard to describe. You'd need to see it, and I recommend you do. So the K7 Letha explains that it was the one controlling Al. It was the one controlling their powers. Not that far-fetched a development, as we saw it many times instinctively lash out. We saw him do things he didn't realize he could do at all kinds of turns. I think this is a good way to kind of explain some of that, where it's like, how do you know he could do that? Well, the K7 Letha knows. And it speaks to some of the things Cog said, even where he was like, it's not just a suit. You know, it's part of you.
And, you know, the other thing that I like is that this makes, even though it does make Al kind of a passenger in his story more than the one driving it, it does, like you said, just kind of explain some of the stuff that kind of felt either silly or like didn't line up kind of one to one. It feels like painting with a pretty broad stroke to explain that stuff away, hand wave it and go, that stuff doesn't matter. Like, let's keep moving forward. And
Yeah.
sometimes I appreciate that, especially in this type of, superhero storytelling. You always have to hand wave away like the worst thing the guy before you did,
Well,
you know?
well, and I think that in some ways also, it's not necessarily always, well, okay. I think that you're right that sometimes it was moments where it seemed like Al was losing his agency. But even here, I don't think it's necessarily that this thing was forcing Al to do things he wouldn't have done. I think it's more that it was the one using his power, trying to like push him towards seizing that ultimate power by, leveling up. We see the power meter go away. This kind of explains that because the suit is fully taking over.
Yeah.
And so we kind of learned that the K7 Letha, this particular symbiote, was chosen for Al. It says, I was the one controlling you. I've been feeding off you every day. You let it happen. The question you have to ask yourself is, how did that happen? I love this page where Al is like, the thing is looming over him. You get it's like sort of face kind of centered in the page. And then you see it's like sort of almost like xenomorph style, like mouth stem thing reaching for Al. You see the claw going through his shirt and Al's pulling up his knife. It's just such a great thing. You get to like this close up on Al's gritted teeth. The ink texture is so nice. It almost reminds me of back when we had, was it Chance Wolf who was inking?
Yeah.
And we liked a lot of his textures. The K7 Letha is telling him, you forgot why you were created. You had the chance to live as a god. And you forgot why you were created. So I took over waiting for you to remember. And this is also maybe speaking a little bit even more about its further manipulations after Armageddon, trying to get him to keep that power. And he says, now I see it in your eyes again. The symbiote says, now I see it in your eyes again. The anger, rage, lust for revenge. Good. I can use that. I can harness that against those who've made you weak. We get this thing where Al starts fighting off the creatures, the like symbiote sort of spawn, excuse me, in a way, these like symbiote monsters that it's like summoning, sort of like the symbiote dragons and shit of Null before that was a thing.
Honestly. I mean, absolutely. And kids love chains. So
that's true.
We know Donnie Cates is a fan.
I hope so. I hope he's doing okay.
Yeah, me too.
He is fighting against the thing, and he's the symbiote says, those that made you weak, like your wife. And Al says, keep her out of this. And the symbiote taunts him the way it's taunted him before, or the way others have taunted him before. Malbolgia, Mammon, so many enemies that know about his past have taunted him by saying, like, she's your weakness. She abandoned you. She hooked up with your best friend. She had a child with him. She lied and said you were sterile. And the truth is she just didn't want to have a baby with you. And Al kind of weakly says, no, it wasn't like that. She loved me. And the Letha says, keep telling yourself that. Someday you'll believe it. But deep down, you know what you must do. And we cut to Mammon. And there's sort of this fade over of Mammon's face over Al's like body. And you realize that Mammon is the one who is speaking through the K7 Letha. And so that adds even further to the idea of how another layer of Mammon's manipulations, his fulsome manipulations, which we will learn later even extend to manipulating the K7 Letha itself and Malbolgia. So
yeah,
it's that Doctor Doom thing we've talked about. Here we catch up with Morana and another vampire, another couple of her vampire coven. And he says, Spawn has just taken the bait. It's time to get yourself prepared. Meanwhile, back at Chikatilo Imports,
Yeah.
Spawn is kind of recovering, and Nyx calls Mark in, and she says, "Look at him. He suddenly became calm. I wasn't touching him. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing." And suddenly Spawn springs to life, and he says, "Where is she?" And Nyx says, "Who?" And he says, "Rachel. Where is she?" He says, "My wife. I need to find her, and I'll kill anyone that gets in my way." Honestly, if this were a comic from 1984, he'd be saying that on the cover.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
That would definitely be the cover. And we're gonna cut back to Cyan here, and she's got the pacifier, and she's writing in her journal still, and she says, "Tonight something's gonna happen. I feel it. I see it. Everywhere I look, there's blood on the walls, on the door, in the rugs. He's coming. And for the first time in my life, I'm afraid of him. I shouldn't be because he saved me and Dad and Mom lots of times, but not this time. He's not coming to save any of us this time. That's why I've been seeing so much blood." And she's in her room, and we're getting this. I like these visuals a lot. The red is kind of the standout color against these like blues and grays and whites.
Silvery blue kind of hue, because she's standing in the room lit fully by the moon, staring at the pacifier. Now, look, again, I know this is sort of exoticized. I've criticized this comic before for doing this other times. We talked about it earlier, exoticizing and sort of, mystifying mental health issues. Never been diagnosed with any schizoaffective disorders. I've never had visual or auditory hallucinations, really. But I have experienced mania, significant mania, prolonged mania, bouts of mania. And if you've ever had that, and it's ever caused you insomnia, and you've ever just been really in the throes of it, there has been a night where you have sat there hyper-focusing on something in the moonlight or in the light of your room or whatever, some sort of, you're just feeling something and staring at something or watching something. There was a point in my mania when I was in high school, when it was first really coming up for me. There were times when I watched you've seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, of course, the Gene Wilder one.
Absolutely. The scene where they go through they go on the boat and it gets like super scary. There was like a week where I just stayed up all night watching that scene over and over and over and over, trying to find the thing in it that made it make sense to me so much. There were nights when I would just sit there staring at something, again, with the moon just coming in the window. There's a realness to it that I think there's a subtlety to that I think, while it is again exoticizing, it maybe speaks again to the idea that David Hine took seriously the idea of adding some kind of verisimilitude to the experience.
Yeah.
There's the whole issue with the concept of the savant, like Rain Man, stuff like that, where there's the whole issue of, your disability, your mental illness, your neurology
like a superpower.
It's a superpower. And it's like, when you're 5 and you love dinosaurs and it's the only thing you want to talk about or write about, and it's the only thing you're interested in, everybody thinks you're a kid genius. When you're 35 and it's the only thing you want to talk about or write about, they're just fucking exasperated with you.
Yeah. And, this scene closes out with Cyan approaching the door, and I like the kind of horror movie feel that Hine's going for here.
There's that shining effect with the blood coming out from under the door.
Yeah. And she reaches for the door. She opens it, kind of a monster in the closet type of situation. And who does she see but Spawn? And she says, "You're going to kill my mom, aren't you?"
What a great ending page.
Yeah,
so good. And it really, honestly, this is the part that hooked me to see there's a tragedy to these issues in the way Spawn comes for Wanda more than anything. And we'll get into the questions it leaves me with, but there are things that are just so, I don't necessarily know how to explain it. There are things that just speaks so deeply to both the person that Al is, to the relationship he actually had with Wanda, and to the way that Mammon has manipulated not just both of them, but their family lines to get to where they are, to produce this set of circumstances. And that's the close of 180. It's in such an effective closing page. The blood all over the door, the blood pouring out all over the floor, Spawn looming over her, and not necessarily looking threatening, but looking menacing.
Yeah. And he looks more put together than we've seen him in quite some time.
Yes,
there's a
he's
resolve,
like fully
even
arched up. He's not hunched over or Draculizing. He is very Michael Myers here, almost.
Yeah,
very Jason Voorhees.
And he's huge.
Yeah,
and he's like absolutely huge. And it's
he's jacked.
It's this. He has this resolution to him.
He looks more monstrous in a way, like more ogreish.
Like a monster bursting out of a superhero costume. Kind
of. Okay, so on that note, with that absolutely dramatic splash page, Pierce, it is time to hit me with the credits for Spawn number 181.
All right, Todd McFarlane Image Comics present The Best of Times. Story by David Hine and Todd McFarlane. Pencils by Brian Haberlin. Inks by Brian Haberlin, Jin Han, and Rodell Nora. Colors by Andy Troy. Lettering by Tom Warzakowski. Production by Francis Takanaga. Cover by Brian Haberlin and Gerard Van Dyke, who we've seen before, and we quite liked his work. The cover rules. The cover looks like the painting of Washington on the front of the boat. Like it's
crossing
this like
the Delaware.
Oh my God,
yeah, okay. Let me see here. I'm pulling it up now.
It's fucking cool. Like it doesn't actually look anything like that, but that's the first thing I thought of when I saw it.
What it makes me think of is the Pietà, which is of course a very famous pose. I want to say it's Michelangelo. I'm not positive, so don't kill me. I'm going to look it up now so I don't feel stupid. It is a sculpture.
Oh, I think it is exactly that, or more or less. It's that.
Yes,
it's also kind of
Michelangelo. It is a sculpture that is Mary holding the dead adult Jesus in her arms. It's a beautiful sculpture, and it is one of the most iconic images of Renaissance art that has been copied so many times.
And in superhero terms, I mean, this is Crisis. This is Cyclops holding Jean.
Oh yes.
This is, we do this pose all the time.
It is a universal pose to show grief and tragedy.
Right. What's interesting here, though, is usually it is to show grief, but basically with that last page reveal from the last issue, and Spawn's general vibe as being scary, and the fact that we can't see his mouth, he's not emoting in this cover. It feels menacing.
I was going to say the same word, much like that last page. There is a truly ominous quality to it that is very effective, especially if you know that sculpture, if you know that pose, if you know the history of that pose in comics. On my Instagram, you can see I just rearranged some of my X-Men figures into a Dark Phoenix motif with Cyclops holding Dark Phoenix in his arms. Very fun. Been trying to enjoy what I got, By the way, if you want to enjoy what I got, you can give me a job writing about comics, I guess, or toys or whatever.
Anything what
really.
You got.
Okay, great.
That's the song, right?
I don't like ska.
Anyway, we cut.
Why don't you ask Gwen Stefani about that? Just Gwen Stefani of No Doubt.
Stefani. Anyway, threw me off so much. It's fine. Spawn is looming over Cyan. We're seconds away from the last panel. He looks crazy. His thighs are gigantic. The room is now filled with blood. And
this is a fully realized Hellspawn. This is the massive Hellspawn he was meant to be. Hasn't looked like this since Wings of Redemption era almost.
But even there, even Wings of Redemption era, he felt
We saw that
like
earlier too. We saw
yeah,
Cyan envisioning that.
yeah, but even that version of him isn't this. This is a monster. This is the monster in your closet, the monster under your bed.
Right.
This is
This is the
Al.
symbiote side of that. Whereas, like, yeah.
There's no more Al Simmons. Like, this is Hellspawn.
And he is fully driven to madness. He is, and I mean, I don't want to equate this to mental illness either, but he is also suffering from hallucinations, much like Cyan, where she's saying, why? As in, why are you going to kill my mom? And he says, I have to, because it's telling me. Can't you hear it? And she says, hear what? And he says, this, and rips open his chest to show his gaping vampiric chest wound where he is feeling this infection by the Letha. All the art in this whole page is great. I was just thinking, you can't imagine how this would have looked. Would it have been anywhere near effective with that earlier style of Spawn art?
Even with Greg Capullo, right? Like,
it would have just been very different.
Yeah, it would have been absolutely different. I'm not saying it would have been bad, but it would have taken on a different tone. I think that Hein is really benefiting from recognizing that he's in this like late 2000s era of like, okay, Haberlin can kind of do the sort of realistic Jay Lee type of unsettled darkness.
Right.
And it works really, really well here. Shout out to Andy Troy's colors as well. To get that across, to recognize that we don't need a lot of colors to keep the mood.
The mood of the colors has been great all the way across.
Also, shout out to Haberlin to make these pages like crime scenes.
Oh,
absolutely. They look like crime scene photos.
Absolutely. You know, we've talked about that before. We've even mentioned the book that was popular a couple of years before this on like the sort of sicko circuits. And so Spawn, his chest bursts open and just a whole fountain of blood comes out. It's almost like the delayed reaction version of the Shining hallway, the blood hallway, where she opens the door, instead of just blood, it's Spawn, and then the blood comes out of Spawn. Sorry, instead of just blood, it's Spawn, and then the blood comes out of Spawn. And as she's drowning in the blood, she holds up the pacifier and the string just out of reach, and she says, you know, the only thing willing to stop the apocalypse was Spawn, when she had visions of rivers of blood before. So we know that was part of the apocalypse in Spawn. He saved them, the entire human race. Now this little girl's last thought is, God have mercy on us all. And
we cut to her waking up, but everything's a little bit off.
She's yelling, Mom, he's coming to kill you.
And when she stands up, she realizes that Granny Blake is there, and that this is another premonition.
Yeah, and Granny's there laying with coins on her eyes as if she's deceased, the way that, you know, is sometimes the tradition. I learned that the actual reason, or one of the actual reasons, they started putting coins on the eyes of bodies, at least more modern times, is because it keeps the eyes closed, so you don't have to like see your loved one's eyes pop open. That could be apocryphal. I don't know. That's one of those facts I never like went back and double checked. But
well, the story version of it, like the legend,
Karen,
is for
to cross
the river Styx.
Yes, right? Exactly. Give them to the ferryman to cross the river Styx. Yeah. And I think that's been like a folkloric tradition. But I don't know. Anyway, I may have just told a horrible lie. Did you know there's a huge, small diversion. What do you know about Komodo dragons?
I know that people use them as guard dogs in like Indonesia.
Okay. Well, have you ever, I didn't know this, but I've always read that they are venomous, or at least that they carry bacteria in their mouths that causes prey to get sick. But apparently that's probably not true, and it is a huge misconception, and there is a great controversy over whether Komodo dragons are venomous at all, or whether the behaviors displayed by their prey after they've been bitten are caused by some other factor. It's very interesting. I think they had a Komodo dragon specimen at the museum, at the American Museum of Natural History.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, I'm looking this up, and it says that Komodo dragons are venomous the same way a vampire bat is, that it's just proteins in their mouth that prevent blood from clotting, but it's not like lethal venom like a snake.
That is one of the most common theories right now.
Yeah.
Because
so
it also... Go ahead.
A protein saliva.
Right. It also doesn't envenomate is the word. What a great word. It doesn't envenomate with every bite, as many snakes do not. So interesting. Just interesting stuff.
Anyway.
I love learning about reptiles.
They are also...
Love me like a reptile, baby.
They also are big fuck off lizards that will fucking kill you.
Yeah, they're
despite
monsters.
Them whether or not they're venomous or not, it doesn't matter.
They don't prey on humans, but they will get aggro. One of the only creatures in the world that actively preys on humans is saltwater crocodile. You know how big those motherfuckers are? Massive.
Gigantic.
Massive. Yeah. Terrifying. So, as is Pog.
Oh, right. Yes.
Based on a saltwater crocodile.
Shout out to Pog.
Yeah.
Man, remember when that got revealed, how hyped everybody was?
Yeah,
where's that toy?
Weird.
They didn't do a toy of any of
I get a Pog.
Drakens. Yeah, me too.
They did. Yeah, they did some X-Men of that era. Anyway. Cyan awakens screaming, "Mom, he's coming to kill you." She sees Granny Blake laying there, and Granny calls to her. Granny's laying in her bed. Granny calls her and says, "Closer, child, come closer. I have something to tell you." Whispered instructions are given. Wrap the old bootlace around a knife. The lace is linked to Spawn, once used to stitch his wounds. We get this great inset of shoelace face Spawn, and we get a rare editor's note calling back to...
check out issue 21.
Which, fair play, that was 159 issues ago. 160.
Go read the Houdini arc.
It's incredible.
And then go read Daring Tales.
And then go read Daring Tales, yeah. So good.
And then listen to our episode about it with
Daring
Chris
Tales
from Play Comics.
That's right. Right.
Was it Daring Tales or Daring Adventure?
Daring Escapes. Daring Escapes.
Daring Escapes. That's it. We got there.
Fucking Houdini. So yeah, it says the act of compassion of giving her the shoelace made the lace a talisman, and a talisman can be a powerful weapon. Suddenly, as she's wrapping the shoelace around the knife, she sees a fly float past, and she realizes he's already here. And we get this killer Hellraiser moment where like suddenly the whole room is just crisscrossed with chains. There's flies everywhere. Cyan hears moaning, the cries. "Hurry, Cyan, your mother needs you." Oh my God, we see an inset of Wanda's mouth, and she and Terry are doing something only adults should do. They're exchanging plasms. Natural, nice. Beautiful, married adult plasms. And she says...
but unfortunately... Spawn's over in the cuck closet.
Spawn's in the cuck closet. Worst case scenario. I've seen this. This reminds me of, as they say, a certain documentary. No, I don't think I've ever seen Spawn come out of a closet in a porno movie. That would actually be fucking sick, especially if it stopped being porn and just turned into just a Spawn movie. That would
This is how the Spawn movie is going to start.
That's kind of how some of the animated series is in some ways, with like Tony Twist and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow, they've thought of everything. So yeah, Spawn's in there watching, and he is not happy. He said, and very relatable. It says, he thought those intense cries of pleasure were only for him. Now, here's something I have to tell Al Simmons, okay? I'm a polyamorous person. I'm non-monogamous. I have multiple partners. My partners have other partners, and their partners have partners, and their partners have partners.
It's like a Russian doll situation.
Well, it's kind of interesting because it all funnels down to me financially. No, no, I have multiple partners. They have other partners. And this is a thought you kind of have to kill in your head. you kind of have to kill it in your head, and you kind of have to realize not everything is for me. Not everything about you is for them. And not everything has to be the same. These things don't have to matter. So, Al, I charge you to work on yourself. Realize that you can process jealousy without asking your significant other to guide you through your own feelings. And you can accept that there is someone else out there thinking the same thing about you and working through their own emotions.
Also,
And just, it's fine.
Also, you don't own Wanda.
You don't own Wanda. You're fucking dead. You don't even have a dick.
Yeah.
You just have plasm.
By the way, I love this panel of him being like he thought those intense cries of pleasure are only for him. Great panel. Like,
oh yeah,
it's been a while.
Just
it's
the
been a while
bitterness
since we've
in his
gotten,
eyes.
It's been a while since we've gotten the real like triangle eye
yeah.
Spawn. You know, the colors are great here.
Yeah,
I love the little highlights highlighting his scary face, nose, and cheekbones.
It's very eerie.
Rules.
Think about how different this would look if that panel wasn't mostly black.
Yeah.
Think about that. Bad. You know,
I mean, not bad, but it would
be different. It would be very different. Speaking of different, Spawn starts creeping out of the closet. At least we've all had to do it. He's trapped in the closet. And he is crawling over the ceiling in like tendrils of darkness. And Wanda says, I hate to wreck the moment, but we need to get going. We promised we'd pick Granny up in an hour. She doesn't like being late. I don't know what's bugging her lately, but she seems to be stressing over everything. There's flies everywhere. And the tendrils start coming across the floor towards Terry, and he looks down with horror as Spawn sort of erupts with chains and fire out of nowhere. And he is even bigger now. He has gotten fully bricked up from sitting in that closet watching that shit. He is just huge. And he looks absolutely horrifying. His face looks almost like Malbolgia with his jaw distending and like the costume making him look less and less human. Part of that is his neck being massive, but like there's this more demonic quality to him that really speaks to his transformation. He is looming over Wanda. You can see that he's transforming in the next panel. His head and his body are kind of turning into one thing. He's almost turning into that like sort of sandworm-esque kind of look that the Letha had when it was confronting Spawn on his like astral plane kind of thing. And
the caption says adrenaline explodes into the symbiotic costume. That's probably not
like
all.
Bane. Yeah, no, he is there.
Yeah, filling its need to touch hatred. In return, the living tissue feeds Spawn with myriad dizzying thoughts and images.
It's a complicated thing to think about, but sometimes there can be ecstasy in facing your worst fear. There can be a moment of true joy.
Sure.
Spawn is experiencing that as the plasma is practically leaking out of his fucking mouth at this point.
Yeah.
It's coming out of his ears. He needs it bad. Where's Angela with her ribbons? If you remember, that's how they hooked up, was that their ribbons and chains intertwined. Yep. They don't have nothing down there. She's an angel.
Nope. Yep.
They experience a different.
It does feel like the symbiote, though, could. I don't need to follow this further. Everybody understands what I was about to say.
You know, it's like, okay. Funny story here. I happen to know someone who is an editor at Marvel Comics, not too far off, just a few years earlier than this. In the early 2000s.
Continue.
Yeah. Who was, they were an assistant editor, I think, or an editorial assistant, something like that. Oh no, sorry. They worked in publicity. That's what it was. And there's an Avengers annual, I think, or maybe just an issue of Avengers written by Jeff Johns, where it focuses on Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym reuniting as a couple. Okay. And they're in Vegas on vacation. Whole thing gets busted up
after that whole like virus arc.
Might have been before. I think it was before.
What I'm talking about. Okay.
Yes, of course. Red Zone.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes,
Anyway.
where Del Rusk is actually the Red Skull, if you can believe it. Spoilers for a 25-year-old story. I actually like Jeff Johns' Avengers run. It's pretty good. But this particular issue opens with Janet and Hank in bed, and Janet's like writhing and moaning, and then you see like her legs sticking out of the blanket, and Hank like peeking up over the fucking blanket at Ant-Man size.
What?
Yeah. That came out. That actually is an issue you can buy. I have it. But this person I know was like in the department that saw it before the public, but after it was like finalized. And he like brought it to the like top editor, or like the boss of his boss, and was like, "Have you seen this?"
Listen, I'll say this: Marvel Comics took a lot more swings before Disney owned them, and you used to get
Bill
stuff like
Jemas
that.
era was horny and weird.
Yep. And you know what? God bless it. God bless it.
Fucking Marvel. We told the story of Marvel, I'm sure.
We have brought up Marvel too much on this show.
Yeah.
Anyway, Spawn is looming over Wanda. He calls her a whore, which
problematic. Yeah.
Yep.
But he is essentially
steps...
hulking out. Like he is turning totally monstrous. Makes me wish that we could do, you know what would be great? We talked about Spawn, Spider-Man, whatever, the dream. Do Spawnverine. Have Capullo draw it. Spawn and Wolverine. That's the only way you could really do it without Todd. Have Capullo draw it. Have someone write it. Else, I don't fucking know. I would love
Percy.
That. Yeah, please no. I'm sorry.
No Ben Percy guy.
You know what? Ben Percy has always been a perfectly nice guy to me. I've interviewed him a few times. I really do not like him as a writer. I'm sorry.
Oh, I liked some of his Wolverine quite a bit.
Hey,
also, he's like the longest running writer on Wolverine since.
I know, and it's so boring.
Larry Hama.
Larry Hama, the goat.
True. I like when Maverick shows up. Anyway.
I like Maverick. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Spawn is tearing apart the room. And Terry just jumps in front of her and says, "God damn, you get the hell away from my wife." Spawn says, "Your wife? I had her first." And now he's fully looming over Terry. He is almost filling the room, both with chains and with his physical presence. And Al is just so possessive of Wanda. He's saying, "You were mine. He took that from me." And she says, "No, you're wrong. He didn't take it. I gave it to him." And that's so important because there's been this long arc for Wanda across so many writers at this point to have her show like, no, when someone moves on after you are dead, they're not taking anything from you.
Yeah.
That is, they are living their life and they are doing something that is just and right.
We've talked about this before, but Wanda has been a frustrating character because much like Al, she's a character that a lot of things happen to her and around her that she has no control over. And so I like this little bit of David Hine able to give her a little bit more agency here, let her be present for those decisions in a way that we haven't I struggle to say wag my finger at Todd McFarlane and Brian Holguin and other writers and be like, bad job, guys. The reality is that the book is called Spawn. It's not called Wanda Fitzgerald,
Also, the idea of the way we write characters and the way women and supporting characters in general, but especially women and significant others, there have been a lot of steps taken. This is 14 years post Fridge, you know what I mean? Post Alexandra DeWitt, where that really became a conversation. It's a long time away from that, maybe 10 or 12 years at least. And so Spawn is definitively the villain in this scene. Yeah. We are not here rooting for Spawn to get Wanda back. We understand completely. And if you don't, I don't know, that he is the villain here. He's fully monstrous. I would Dude, the monster Spawn figure would be so sick.
Awesome.
I love this panel where Cyan confronts him. She takes the knife wrapped in the shoelace and she says, "No more. Leave my mom alone." And Spawn looks over and he's just fully monstrous. His jaw is hanging open, almost
just
like
drooling.
He's getting more Fleabiac. His jaw really is like getting bigger and toothier and more like hollow. That energy is emanating from it. He's slavering with green slime. And he says, "Or what?" just calmly. And she says, "Or this." And we get this great page or this great panel of her stabbing him in the stomach in his usual gaping chest wound with the knife and his mouth like flying open all the way down his body. Then we turn the page and he is basically just turned into this huge vampire bat shadow with this knife sticking out of his chest. And she says, "Granny said to give you a message. She said you need to take my mom back to, quote, the best of times." And he says, "The best of times," and says, "See issue 18." And she says, "Yes."
16.
Sorry, 16.
Right? Is it 18? I don't know.
No,
Looks like 16.
It's 18. I got my spectacles on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Fault. It is very small.
Yeah. So notably about that, just to quickly touch on, 16 to 18 is that arc Reflections that is written by Grant Morrison. It's when we get Redeemer and we get like that town that is sort of made up, but we get we get a really awesome fight scene in 18. Actually, go back to issue 18. That shit slams. It is crazy to look at these issues side by side though, because the book has changed so much.
Yeah,
it is wild how much it's changed.
I mean, but, again, it's that blueprint of the evolution of the comic industry and the medium through that era.
Oh yeah, totally. But yeah, this issue ends with issue 18 ends with Spawn in the tree watching Terry and Wanda, getting ready for bed. And
yeah, and it's one of the first moments of him having that like sort of almost contact with Wanda. One thing I will say I don't super like about this is I don't love that Wanda is still being a little bit sexualized by the art. She's wearing the shirt she put on when she was with Terry.
Yeah,
but it's kind of showing it in a way that I don't know. We've talked often about the combination of sexuality and victimhood and sexualizing people who are the subaltern in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, it's not terrible, but we see in Spawn's eye that it's him and Wanda drifting in a boat. That's the memory that it comes to mind. I love this panel of super monstrous Spawn. Wanda says, "Please don't hurt my family. I'll do whatever you want. Just leave them alone." And Spawn fully just he almost looks like No Face from fucking Spirited Away, where it's like super huge and writhing and just bits of it. Superlative film, by the way. Absolutely gorgeous. He's just looming. He grabs Wanda with his cape, and you can see that he's like 15 feet tall. He barely fits in the room. And
you can't even see where his like body starts, the cape starts.
It's all just this writhing mass.
Yeah.
And he says, "I don't need them anymore. I have you." And he's not shouting. That's the thing that's so creepy is he's just like talking. He's just like, "I don't need them anymore. I have you." And they just fade away. And Terry says, "Where's the phone? I have to do something. I don't know where they went." And Cyan's reassuring him. She says, "It's okay, Daddy. I promise." And she says, "Stay here. I have to call someone." And she goes and calls Nix. She says, "Granny told me to get her." She calls Nix, but we see the coin. We get a close-up on Granny's face where she was laying with the coins in her eyes. Then we get a close-up on the coin, and it is minted with the face of Mammon.
Bum, bum, bum.
So these are all just bits and bobs of Mammon's plan. Now, here's the thing. This is what's crucial here, and we're going to get into Al/Spawn confronting Wanda over the memory of Al abusing Wanda, resulting in the termination of her pregnancy with his child.
Yeah. And where it starts is him bringing her to this reference back to issue 18. So back in 18, you know, he fights Redeemer, and then he goes and fights the general that he worked for as well, and he shoots that guy in the face. And just because it's relevant here, this is the narration in 18. It says, "Time to finish the job. I watch it all come down. I watch it all burn. The house I grew up in, the bar I drank in, the park and the school, and Uncle Martin's store. My life goes up in flames. Everything that was human is gone except for one thing. One memory of a perfect day remains as I stand in the blazing ruins. The memory of a sunlit spring day on the lake, the day I asked Wanda to marry me. Best day of my life. I use my mind to collapse the entire scene, shaping the psychoplasm into a more manageable form. I take that last memory and reduce it down to a single spark. That was the best day, best thing I ever did. It's worth keeping, but I'd only break it or lose it. Guess I should put it somewhere safe." And he floats that memory to
Away.
Wanda at the end of 18.
Yes. And so this is important. They go back to that day, but it's not how it was. Instead, calling back to the coins on the eyes, as you brought up, they're floating on the river Styx, it appears, on a river of death, on a boat with skulls. That is clearly the theme here, is that this is the river Styx. And Wanda is saying this is where, she remembers this is where Al asked her to marry him. And he says, "I have to be free of you. I don't have a choice." And she says, "Free from me? What about me being free from you? All I did was try to carry on, try to get past the pain of my husband's death. You know what that's like? To have someone leave you and break your heart at the same time. You want to be free of me? Then forget me. Forget I ever existed." And Al says, "I can't. I've already tried. I keep coming back to what I did to you, to us." And she says, "Killing me rids you of that guilt?" And he says, "No. Killing me stops me from thinking I was ever human to begin with." She says, "What if I forgive you of your sin of killing our unborn child?" And he says, "Say it." And she says, "I'm sorry, I can't forgive you for that. But if my husband is somewhere inside you, tell him that I loved him. I still do." Now, this is important because there have been seeds back and forth about whether this is real. Now, I have tended to come down on the side that everything so far seems to point to the idea that this is real. However, there are a lot of clues that Mammon has a hand in it. The idea that we just saw Mammon's countenance on the coin, and we know he's been manipulating the symbiote to manipulate Al, to manipulate this moment. There is a question in me still about, is Mammon manufacturing this entire event? Or, did Mammon insert this event into Al's history after rewriting stuff? I don't think that's the case. Or, and this seems to be, without further confirmation, Occam's razor, is it part of that cycle of manipulation of events that Mammon created? And so it's not necessarily Al who he is or would have been, but Al as he is under the manipulation of a cunning mastermind, something that he is constantly susceptible to. He's groomed to be susceptible to by Mammon.
I think that I think, as Mammon has kind of told us time and time again, is that he has the capacity for evil. He has the capacity to do bad things, and that Mammon has really seized on that. And even this instance where I think because he's the hero of the story, you really don't want it to be true, right? And we've kind of talked about this.
I was going to say, it feels a little like character assassination, but as you pointed out, he didn't go to hell for no reason. He wasn't going to go to heaven and then Malbolgia tricked him. He was just going to go be a tormented, damned soul in hell. And it's not because he was a nice guy in life.
Right. And I think that, that's sort of the journey that you have to be on with Spawn, is like, how much of this do I want to care about, and how much of this feels relevant to the character. I think we'll start to see probably another like 50 or 100 issues that you can kind of, you brought up Hank Pym earlier, right? And Hank Pym has like one of the all-time most memorable moments in a comic book ever that for many readers felt like character assassination, and that's just him hitting his wife. and
Yeah.
and to the point where that character has almost never been able to live it down, to the point where he's not the Ant-Man of the MCU,
Right.
on
Well,
some
we
level
get
because
some
of that.
character redemption in the MCU, but honestly, well, and it's so controversial because as many fans by this time know,
Yeah.
supposedly the intent was not to have him strike Janet Van Dyne. It just
Right. It was for her to be pushed away, like,
yes, him to be like brushing her away, but it doesn't
Right.
matter. We don't have to. That may also be apocryphal. It may just be trying to justify a bad decision. Jim
Sure.
Shooter's Avengers run, as much as I am in some ways a Jim Shooter era apologist, Jim Shooter has a lot of problematic issues of Avengers under his belt. The less said about like his Carol Danvers arc, the better.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, so to that point, I think that Spawn at this point in 2026 has gone on long enough that you pick and choose the continuity you want to.
Yeah, it's like any comic.
like.
You don't necessarily reference
Right.
every issue every time you write it.
If I remember correctly, Peter Parker also causes Mary Jane to have a miscarriage.
No, it's not quite that.
Like,
It's different.
in a way.
It's weird. And like, yeah, it's just weird. And it doesn't feel great.
We don't even need to think about that. You know what I mean? It's not the same situation, but that my point is that like, it's not necessary and you kind of have to make your own continuity at some point. And this is one of the things that I'm glad it's being addressed. But it doesn't mean that it's not kind of tough to talk about as both a creative decision and also as like the thing that is on the page.
Yeah. I do like this moment where she's like, I can't forgive you, but I still loved you. And that is a complex thing that I think most humans experience on some level. There are people in your life, throughout your life, somewhere in your life has been a person where you were thinking, I love you, but I can't forgive you.
For sure.
And I've moved on in a way that I don't even feel like I need to forgive you. You should be able to have had closure by now over what you did to me. If I can move on from being the survivor of your violence, then you have to move on from me in order to move, in order to at all restoratively figure out a way to find justice and reparation for that violence. For peace, you have to move on from it as the perpetrator. You have to be willing to accept that you did it and make it your past. Anyway, this is me just saying shit. But
this scene is great. As she says that she can't forgive him, he's reminded that he has been stabbed, and
he's got a knife in his chest now, metaphorically and physically.
Yeah, and he pulls it out, and he realizes that what's even more powerful is what's wrapped around the knife, a special lace holding a precious symbol, a symbol of that which no man may put asunder, and it's the ring. It's his wedding ring.
Alan Terry's wedding ring. That's the alternate Spawn we're gonna write.
Yeah,
Spawn and Terry.
Where Wanda steals Terry
from Spawn, from Al. Oh man, this would be really bad to write. No, it would be great. Yeah, and so it's an unbreakable bond with neither beginning or ending. Spawn pulls out the knife and he says, Wanda, and they're floating on this like horrid, like nightmare skeleton boat. And he says, please forgive me. And as he pulls out the knife, the K7 Letha like pours off of him like ribbons. We get him like a fully flayed person, like just his musculature, his eyes gaping open. And he says, forgive me. And the symbiote starts dissipating into the water. Cyan and Nyx are sitting on the shore talking, and Nyx says to Cyan, if your grandmother foresaw this, then she's even more powerful than we thought. And Cyan says, I don't care about that. Now we need to find my... And just as that happens, Nyx notices someone's coming, and it's the boat. Now a regular boat. It's still the skull boat with Al, and he's carrying Wanda. He's fully nude, which I'm sure Cyan's enjoying. He's carrying Wanda, And Cyan says, "Mom," and he says, "Come, she needs you and your strength," and lays her down. And Nick says, explaining, "Your daughter found me, but it appears I'm not the only witch around here," supposedly talking about Granny Blake. But what we know is that's Mammon, and that power was Mammon, and Nyx's power is Mammon's. And again, she can only do what Mammon allows her to do. Even that is a manipulation.
Yeah. Every moment that we're seeing is just part of his larger plan. We're gonna get a release. We're gonna get a lot of explanation in the next issue, but for now, this is a very like, holy shit, like, what's the end game? What does he want?
Al is human again, and I think I know what the end game is. We'll talk about that in 1 second. But as Al is explaining, something happened out there to the costume. It was controlling me, then it just disappeared into the lake. Nyx is looking out at the water, and we see this ominous, slithery shape moving under the water towards the shore. You'd almost miss it because it almost looks like just waves or variation in the water, but the color works so effectively to show, no, there's a dark undercurrent, literally. In that last panel of Nyx's boots, as the tendrils start to reach up out of the water, and then Al is saying, "I didn't think it was possible, but I think I'm free of it." And we see the Letha in its full monstrous form, the form it would have taken had it not been bound. You can see that this is the like Letha side of that Al Letha hybrid monster form.
Yeah.
It's looming over her. It looks like Violator. Its chest is in its mouth, or its mouth is in its chest, rather. Sorry. It's got like this huge gaping maw. It really does look like a Fleabiac. It looks like a demon of the Spawn variety, and I love that. And it's just looming over Nyx with this energy pouring out of it. And we end on that note. Another great splash page.
Yeah, and as readers, we're just sort of left to not really know exactly what's going on. I mean, we're kind of in the middle of an arc.
And we'll get to what happens next. I mean, obviously, that's another big lingering moment. What's going to happen with Nyx and the K7 Letha? How will that play into what Mammon has done? You know, I think it's very interesting.
And like, does it even mean that maybe Al wasn't the real end game as soon as Nyx came into the picture? Right? Is it possible that she's part of his larger machinations?
I mean, she has some fraction of his power now. And also, I will say, sorry, go ahead. I won't interrupt your thought. I have a thought later that I'll bring into my final thoughts, which we can get into.
What we know as kind of a more, being in the future is just like, there's 3 more issues. Issue 184 is called The End. Issue 185 through 196 is called Endgame.
Yeah.
Something's happening, right? We're closing in on 200 even. And like, the book has really shifted. I loved the call. I guess I'm getting into final thoughts a little bit here.
Go for it.
I love the callbacks to those earlier issues of Spawn. Even though they're not Todd McFarlane written ones, it's clear that Todd and David Hines said, there's a way to tie this back to something really important.
Definitely.
I think issues 16 to 18, you already know that I'm a huge mark for Grant Morrison, but
yeah, of course, me too.
I love that arc.
It's a good arc.
I think it's awesome.
I remember we got really deep into the angelic shit and like
yeah. And I love the really bittersweet note it ends on because
it's a great ending.
It represents an era of Spawn where you could root for Al, where his longing and his pining for this lost love was kind of beautiful, Well, this has taken that idea, and Mammon has completely twisted it and turned it on its head and made his love and his humanity the ultimate tool for manipulation. And we had not seen how far down the rabbit hole it really went, but as it's being revealed, it's uncomfortable, it's unsettling, it is horrific in I think it's well executed for the most part, but it's horrific in its revelations.
It's interesting that moment is one of the first moments where Spawn is like, that's it. No humanity left to lose. And then 150 issues later, he's lost his full humanity so many times and thought he even had it back. and it would be ripped away. And it's just like, yeah, that was the first drop in the bucket of this. Now, what I think is also interesting about this, when I think about the end game, I don't know if it was intended to be that, but that's the way it's evolved through the writing. What I think, we get Endgame is such a stereotype now, thanks to Avengers Endgame. But when we get into that, what I think is coming is Mammon is trying to take away all of Al's weapons, because now the K7 Letha is what he needs it to be, but Al is not the host he wanted. And so now that Al is probably human again, this is how Mammon wants him to die. He wants Al to, we already know that that's what he wants. He wants Al to want to die. And I think that's what's, where he's trying to get him. And I think it speaks to something you brought up, David Hein and Todd being like, I think we can call back to this. I think one of the strengths of David Hines' run so far, is that he does call back to things, and he does bring those moments back. He just kind of is doing them almost in an order like last in, first out, in a way, where he is taking those continuity bits that are more connected to like that moment. Like Armageddon, we talked about it at the time, doesn't bring back every plot line, doesn't try to tie up every thread, anything like that. David Hein brought in those elements, and now he has progressively brought in more and more and tied it into Mammon. And again, the Doctor Doom of it all is one of the refrains of this podcast. And I think it struck us both and really fits with what David Hein has been doing with Mammon here.
Yeah, 100%. It has we've asked that question so often, like, when can the Rogues Gallery really start to stand on its own and give us a sort of long-running story that we can feel invested in? Past, like, that goes further than, Redeemer's cool for 3 issues. Yeah, the Freak is cool for 2 issues. Oh, it's cool to bring back Overt Kill like 16 times because he can't really.
Well, that's a very stereotypical, like, oh, the Rhino's here again. The Lizard came back, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it is, it is really, really, really interesting to have a character who, it's a bit of a retcon that he's had his fingers in kind of everything since the beginning, but I think that Hein's doing a good job of giving us doses of the mystery, kind of parsing. So we're allowed to sort of like take that in over time and really examine, like, okay, fuck, well, this old thing is maybe Mammon, or maybe this thing was also related, and like, how does your reason and Ab and Zab, how do they tie back into this? It makes it feel like a much more connected, overarching world that I think was a little bit the intent at the beginning of the Image universe, right?
Right.
Of Chapel being the one to kill Al Simmons, of, Youngbloods existing in the world, of Savage Dragon existing in the world of Spawn. And then once he lost those connections because those books stopped existing, or the creators didn't want to keep doing those things and keep crossing over, and a movie came out and nobody wanted to pay Rob Liefeld, it has shifted into something where it started shifting into something like those early 2000s Marvel films, where you're like, here's a Spider-Man movie, and you're like, right, Spider-Man who lives in the same city as the Avengers, and they're like, no, it's just Spider-Man.
Yep.
And you're like,
and we're gonna slyly reference one guy in 3 movies.
Yeah, exactly. And so like it started to have that kind of bubble feel, and now it does feel like the book's opening up again. It feels like Nyx can be a character that we hang out with for a while. It feels like Cyan as a character is really coming into her own.
And we know she'll be important throughout the Spawn mythos into today.
Exactly. Yeah, she becomes her own kind of hero. Her powers don't go away. That gets expanded on. And we're seeing it in these like more modern books too, like The Curse of Shirley Johnson, and where we're going back and we're exploring these little bits of continuity.
It's part of comics. It's part of superhero comics.
It's great. I mean, I think, again, we've said this before. We started doing the show because we were like, not enough people talk about Spawn. And we talked about this with Mark as well, that like, there's enough people in the Spawnmunity
We
that
just
there should
had
be more people
the
talking about
urge.
Spawn.
And, we've talked
Yeah.
about it again. Where like, I wasn't the hugest Spawn fan, certainly not of the comic before we started this. I was very well aware of it. Loved it at one point. You can hear us talk about this extensively throughout our episodes. But
Yep.
now I mean, I'm a huge Spawn fan now. I think it's one of the most interesting and culturally important documents of that era of comics. Again, we've talked about this before. If you want to know the 60s in comics, you read the first 100 issues of Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four. You know what I mean? If you want to
Exactly.
if you want to know what was going on in the 70s, the 80s, you could read Frank Miller, you could read that kind of stuff. There were the hallmarks of those eras. You had Claremont's X-Men in particular as one of those super long runs there. And then you have Spawn, and Spawn is the one that really more than any other is a document of the 90s. You can say X-Men has that because X-Men's kind of the stereotypical, like, number one, everyone thinks about X-Men in 90s comics, the dominant force, obviously. But there were so many titles throughout that era and so many creators and so many just like
Also, you
disparate
get Age of
things
Apocalypse right in the middle.
right in the
That like
middle.
you're
And
like, wait, what?
Spawn is a different kind of animal because, again, it is a small handful of creators who have worked in succession with Todd McFarlane overseeing it the whole time. So it's just such an interesting document of that version of comics and that type of superhero comics and that cultural map for comics. I mean, that's why we love talking about it every week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, George, before we go, do you have any recommendations for our listeners this week?
I do. It's been a while since I gave like a philosophical one. So the first thing I'm going to say is just whatever you're dealing with, whatever is weighing on you, whatever you feel like, try to forgive yourself for it. You know what I mean? Try to forgive yourself for your failings this week. Try to forgive yourself for maybe not living up to like your own ideal or your own resolution in something. If you committed murder, forgive yourself by turning yourself in. So there's that. But then also I'll give a slightly different recommendation. That's something I've been working on. Losing your job, especially in America, feels like a moral failing, no matter the circumstances. And so I've been struggling with that and trying to have some grace for myself. And I just hope our listeners will do that too, because we need it right now. And the first person we're going to get it from is ourselves. So
Absolutely.
On that note, speaking of grace, I want to recommend another podcast that I've been just listening to voraciously. It's called The Worst of All Possible Worlds. Have you ever heard of it?
I think so.
It's like a pop culture podcast, but it's hosted by like three former like evangelical Christian like queer people, or two, two of them are former evangelicals. One is a former Catholic. But so they look at pop culture through this sort of ex-religious lens, and they have these kind of sub-series. And one of the ones that I've really been enjoying, weirdly enough, is their analysis of episodes of this like super long-running Christian radio drama called Adventures in Odyssey. Did you ever have that as a kid, or is that more Southern?
I don't know. I don't think I did. Adventures in Odyssey? It weirdly sounds familiar.
It was from Focus on the Family.
Yes. Holy shit. Oh my God. This just unlocked like, oh, holy fuck. Oh no. I completely eliminated this from my brain, and this just awoken. Oh no.
Well,
I have to listen to this now.
If you want to subscribe to their Patreon, it's worth it. All their episodes are great. They're fucking hilarious. But one thing that I was going to say that I particularly appreciate about that series of their podcast, they have it on their Patreon, nicely organized. You can go to the collections and just listen to the whole like collection of their Adventures in Odyssey thing. They take a critical eye to it in a serious way, textually and contextually and analytically. And I love that because it really reminds me of what we do, not to be conceited, but like, again, like we were just talking about, we take a look at Spawn and we look at it through a lens that it has often been ignored through. And I think there's real value in that. And I have taken a lot of value from hearing them discuss it and their approach. And honestly, I think you'd really like it, Pierce, as because it's just a bunch of ex-evangelicals talking about shit. It reminds me, I mean, obviously I am not formerly evangelical at all myself, but my father and stepmother are very evangelical. And so I was raised partially around their church. And I remember this from one of my earliest memories of living in this state in Georgia where I live was going to Chick-fil-A for the first time and getting one of those tapes in the kids' meal.
That's fucking wild. Yeah, it's still on.
Oh, yes. It's
they
a
still
podcast
make new
now.
episodes.
Yes, they do.
It's crazy. That's crazy. Oh my God. I definitely had a bunch of these tapes as a kid. Holy shit. This really awakened something in me that I didn't remember that I forgot. Holy shit. This is crazy. Anyway, yeah. Check out The Worst of All Possible Worlds. I'm going to. They have a live show soon.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, anyway, cool. My recommendation is I've recommended them before. Actually, no, I have a different recommendation. Josaleigh Pollett is a queer person in Utah. If you like cool indie rock, they make great stuff with their music writing partner, Crowd Shy. They have a new record coming out this summer, and what is their latest single? This was somebody I started following during the pandemic. Radio Player, incredible song, kind of about seeing the movie Poltergeist at too young an age. But if you like really cool indie rock songs, we'll link it in the description. Check out Josaleigh's music. Their new record is coming out soon, so they probably don't care about Spawn, but so a weird wreck, but you know, it is what it is. We're out here having adventures in Odyssey. Anyway, if you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We really appreciate it. You might remember that we experimented with having an ad once and we immediately hated it and got rid of it. So if you like what we're doing, you know, it really helps just spread the word about the show. If you got any kind words for us, you can send them over to spawnographypod@gmail.com and we'll read your letter on the air.
We'd love to hear from you, especially if you're nice.
Yeah. Anyway, George, for Todd So Loved the World,
he gave his only begotten Spawn 3:16.
See you later, Hellspawn.
Spawnography!
Spawnography is recorded in Athens, Georgia, and Queens, New York. It's produced by me, Pierce Lyden. Our theme music and logo were composed by George Marston. Episodes come out every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media at Spawnography or at SpawnographyPod. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at spawnographypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, see you later, Hellspawn.